Alafia, love and light villagers. This is a great day on 222.9 The Mothership, your mystic haven on the airwaves. We are cruising into our third decan of Leo season, and I'm still turning it up because yes, the mother of the mothership is a resident of Zodiac House 5. Leo, stand up. But we all know lioness is running packs, right? So today on the mothership, I have the honor, I have the privilege, I have the blessing of sharing a conversation with another hard-working female lioness like myself. She's the publisher and founder of Tre Magazine. And I gotta tell you, I'm really proud of my sister. Because I remember back in 2011 when I was one of her guest journalists. And it went from an 8x10 with the artwork on the cover. Then we got the Tre Magazine, the mini Jet Magazine edition. And now right here in my lap, I am holding a heavy, luxury, top-notch publication. And it just says T-R-E. So we're going to get into that. Without further ado, Stephanie Coleman, how are you today?
I am wonderful, so honored to be on air with you as a global entity, a beautiful radio station. You've had such a great journey, and it's just an honor to be here.
Thank you. And it's an honor for you to be here on this station because I got to tell you, when we met in 2011, it's like I was still seeing what it looked like to create your own destiny. And you were doing it before I was. So I speak facts on the mothership. Because I have to be honest with you. This newer generation, I don't know what's in the air or in the water these days. But it really bothers me when our people take things and do things and we never want to give thanks to people who inspired us. And that's not the indigenous way of living. That's not what we do. It's the mother ones that steal stuff and pass it off as theirs. What we do is we give homage to everybody that was a hand in our play. Everybody that was a part of our story. So I want to say thank you for hanging in there as long as you did, because you showed me what it looked like.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to pay that back and pay that forward. I think there are kindred energies on this planet, and we seek each other out, we feed into each other, we uplift, we support, we go through this journey, and we connect without a request back. And there were those who did that before us. There are those who got caught up. I personally do think affirmative action for culturally, yes, someone can argue the logistics of it as a business enhancing model. But I do think it created that concept of how can I hoard the concepts so I can get the 10%. And I think we have survived too long without that value system. So what is just a blip in time, just a blip in time, we can reconnect to our ancestors who did it collectively to our core values. And we can build that from you and I today, from whoever we touch and whoever else touches us. We can show by example. And the next generation, the one that's not totally bombarded by, online challenges, they can say they remember when two lionesses got together and what we did. And that could be the only truth they know. So, I agree with you that there is some brokenness, but it's not everyone because it's not us. And it's not everyone because there are other people who we know. That's who we write about in the magazine. That's who you speak about on the mothership. We don't have to be limited or defined by the few broken ones.
Right.
We can, we're out here. We're out here. We're packs. We're building.
And sis, if anything, it's a reflection of how our work is cut out for us. It's like an opportunity to bring that light into the darkness. As Leo was ruled by the sun, and the sun powers all things. I like to say that Onile, or the Orisha term for the spirit of the Mother Earth. Mother Earth put enough here for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the sky is big enough for all of us to shine.
Correct.
We don't have to knock each other down to shine brighter. We don't have to, hide or not acknowledge each other's achievements, because when you're born, like when you said kindred spirits, some of us are here on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
It just is what it is. Some of us are here on a mission, and it's beautiful to see two people join forces and enhance each other's divine paths.
Oh, yeah, that's a great way to say it.
But let's talk about your divine path. I always say, I'm gonna let you a storyteller, but we ain't gonna leave out your story. So this is the story of Stephanie Coleman. You think you know, but you have no idea. Yes, ever evolving. So this is the Stephanie Coleman story.
It's so funny. It's interesting how a story is depending on where you are on the timeline. At some points you look at it and you just, I look at my own story and it's just like, worst time ever. But when you can look back on it, you realize, most defining moment ever and most transformative moment ever. That there are these ways we tell it. So I can tell it from where I stand now. I might look back at it and find humor in the hard times and hurt in the happiness, but it's a unique space to be in. I'll sort of start through the magazine journey, and some of this I don't think I've had an opportunity to share all the story, but we are kindred spirits in transparency. So,
yes.
And in inspiring others, I think it's important to know really what a walk in faith it was. And what beautiful moments like meeting you and you pouring in saying, no, I see what this is and I see where it's going and I want to be a part of it. You never know what that does, especially as an entrepreneur trying to walk in purpose.
Yes.
You never know how just that word of like, you want to put your name of excellence on this name.
I'm honored you feel that. I didn't know you felt like that, sis.
Yeah, that's really invigorating that someone can see that much value in what you're attempting to do. Because we're in growing pages, so you're like, it's kind of a little wobbly right now. It's good, but it's not.
Because I gotta admit, artistically, I am high strung. Okay, that's my guilty confession. When it comes to literature, I am very hard to please when it comes to books. I am known for throwing books out of vehicles, and if I don't like this book, I'm gonna throw it. And it was like when I first read Tre, I'm like, this is good stuff. Like, this is really good stuff. Like our own Source magazine. Like I told you, I wasn't kidding when I was like, this magazine belongs on the table right next to Jet Essence and Ebony. Bam, Tre, get some. It's wonderful. But let's get to the story though, sis. Let's get to the story.
Okay. So I get to it. So I'll sort of start from the beginning. So I, born and raised in Houston, left because at that point in stage when I was graduating high school, which is 92, Houston was notably segregated. And the only opportunities for me at that stage as an artist was who did you know? And I was not looking to be grandfathered into any type of, I wanted to know that my gifts stood on their own. So I packed my little bag, scrapped my way to New York City, $35 left in my little hand account, got a job, and worked my way up and worked my way through and had to really sort of own this story of my own capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Could I design? Was I credible, or was I credible as a woman? Or was I good, or was I good for a black woman? Or was I good, or was I good enough for a black woman for the South? And my whole thing was I wanted to know that I was phenomenal period. I wasn't good in spite of or good because of a different measuring piece. I was good because this was the bar and I met it and I exceeded it. And that had always been just and I feel like my privilege and fortune that I was able to have that as a leg up, right? There's some of us who was just good enough to get accepted. Yes. But I had been accepted and then still challenged to say, under what terms? So went up there, worked it out, moved my way through, did a lot of work, reinvented, keep transforming, got married, built a life, and then life hit. It was unhealthy is an understatement of that relationship. And I had to look up and say, well, is this what you were here for?
We have very similar stories.
So I had, that was one. So I had to say, I met a random young lady. We became instant friends. And I said, all I need you to do is mail me my computer. All of this other stuff can go. Because if I have my computer, I can eat. And so I moved back to Houston. My dad provided me safety and comfort. And as we were talking and looking, I was like, what is happening here? Because I had not come back to Houston in the Tre for 18 years, really. Because it was just like, I can't fight color here anymore. And so then when I came back, and he was like, well, this is because of that. And that is because of this. And New York had made me comfortable with walking in all doors. So I'd go to a meeting that was the Republican suburban housewives of, upstate Texas, Conroe. Then I'd be in something at Shape Community Center and back and forth all in one day. And I was starting to connect the dots. And so I'm a mom with a kid on my hip trying to figure it out. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Someone needs to do something about this. And blah, 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 blah. And I said it to the lady at the bus stop, said, well, why don't you do something? And at that point, game was on, game was over. I had just never thought about it. I mean, I could see it clearly. I guess in some ways you're gifted and cursed with the ability to see it. But something as simple as someone saying...
I'm sorry, sis. I'm sorry to cut in. But I'm just sharing this with you. I stopped saying curse with the gift. I kind of say fine print on the package.
I like that.
Side effects included.
So gifted with a little small print.
Some fine print on the gifts, but I wouldn't call them curses. It's just some fine print on the package.
I like that. Well, there was a lot of small print. It was darn near like a legal letter. But it became undeniable that was what I was that was what this journey brought me back for, because I was perfectly positioned. I had generation understanding of the area. I had capacity to tell story, capacity to connect the dots, and then every time I'd go to the bus stop to drop off the kids, her question was, how's it going? And I was like, oh, you're checking on this.
Right. Oh, so I'm not the only one that's checking up. Okay, how many pages you done wrote today? You done did your homework? Oh, so I see.
And it was a lot. It was a lot. But, she said a quote that I've never forgotten, although I can never repeat it correctly. But she said, well, this is your, divine purpose. And I said, well, how do you know that? Right? Like, how do you know what's my purpose and what's my gift? She said, well, there's some things that you learn as skills. Here, we take a job as a this and a that, be it a clerk or a cleaner or whatever it is. But those skills that we learn here are to help us feel that voice that's inside of us, that inner desire, whether it's to knit or to do a magazine, whatever it is, there's something that skill will eventually help you manifest. And so when she said that, then I could understand, because this haunts, this persists as a thought. Mm-hmm. And so we sort of worked it out. And I'm going to say this just from an entrepreneur standpoint, that if you really do the work, whatever your faith is, divinely it will connect. You know, be it however spirit leads you, or however the ancestors guide you, whatever that guiding force is for you. I had been looking for printers and looking for this and calling around, and I just kept calling. And I said, well, what does this cost? No one's going to tell you. But one guy did. And he was one of the better quality publications that I had seen in Houston. So he walked me through it. I was trying to get the printing my first ad. And this is a true story, and I'll sort of speed up from there. So
go ahead.
So I'm looking for an ad. I design out 1 or 2 pages, and I said, this is the vision. This is what I've been given, and this is what I see for how we celebrate Tre. And if we can repackage a pet rock and sell them, we can repackage ourselves and repackage our people. So I go to HCC, and I'm so nervous. I'm late. HCC I could walk to from where I was, but just the fact that it's like, I can't believe that this idea is actually this far. This complaint has become actionable and will manifest now. So I'm 15 minutes late, and I walk in, and the guy is just walking me through it. Do you have this? Are you certified for that? Do you have this? And I was like, no, and as we're doing it, he's emailing me this. Well, we can't work unless you're a vendor. The things that I understand now, but at that point, I just thought you went in with a book, and they liked it, and they took an ad. Like, I didn't know process.
So you had to learn it as you went.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And so I was thinking I was going to get a $45 ad. And there we go. And he talked through, and he talked through the vision, and he's going, and he said, how much is a full page? And I was like, here. And then how much is it in color? I was like, here. And then I should have walked out. I should have been just grateful. But I had a small little asterisk at the bottom that said, if you're outside of the Tre, you have a 30% increase in the price, so you can support the small businesses in our neighborhood that can't afford the ad. And I told him that, and he said, oh, okay, that makes sense. And
wow.
And that's what I said. And then he says, well, how much is that? And I said, you know what, I'm sorry. I didn't expect this conversation to go this far. I don't even know. So he patiently calculated the price that he wanted for the ad that he wanted and added the 30%. And when I walked out of there, we were in business.
Oh, man.
Because it was darn near to the dollar what we needed to print the first book.
Wow.
So so it's just, and so people look at it now and it's like, oh, well, you've been able to create this amazing experience, but for anyone who has that first step, it doesn't really flow the way people imagine. It wasn't this grandiose experience. It was just sort of divine placement and living out that voice that was inside every time I woke up. Do something for community. Do something for more than yourself. Bring your gifts to bear for your people and for people. And there you go. So that's kind of, a piece of it that I think until now people have not known, that it wasn't this glamorous, I came from New York and life was great. I came from a divorce, from a horrific divorce. So whatever baller I was, I left that behind on faith. And this was purely, okay, God, if it's meant to be, you're going to make it show up, because I don't have it, right? I didn't come here with it. And I can't even believe I'm asking these people to give it to me.
So take me to the moment when Tre first came out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Well, I want to know about that moment. Where did Tre formulate in your being before you manifested it into physical reality? Like, where did the idea for Tre Magazine come from? I'm digging for the conception point.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have to give credit to my dad, who just really his love, his commitment to Third Ward. Not that it had been phenomenal to him, but he just he just was always connected to keeping it authentic, but he loved to read. He loved to travel. So he knew a bigger piece, but he'd come back home and see, they're not connecting the dots. So as I would come in and out and visit at his office, with my grandfather hat on, dialing with him, and my aunt's still there. But I'd walk out the door and I'd see something that was a little odd, and I'd walk back in. I was like, what? Because remember, I was gone for 18 years. Like, hey, what's happening over here? And then I'd see a little gentrification coming through, and I was like, hey, what's happening over here? Then I'd see a bad development deal happening where we got, as a community, sort of not included on a big project. And I was like, oh. And so he was reading the Houston Chronicle and reading other papers and connected to the pulse, and he could connect the dots. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, maybe you should talk about this, and maybe you should talk about that. And I was like, Daddy, I ain't got time. I can't. I can't do all of this. And 2 or 3 things happened. One, there were some people who he talked about that had done some amazing things who passed away.
Oh, yeah.
Just in that first. And I just felt like, oh, wow, their story went untold, right? Like that hit. Yeah. And I couldn't shake it. Watching people tell stories, they were either ill-informed or so accurate, but they were very much like Hurricane Katrina, when the people were talking about, no, we heard this explosion and this is what happened. And they were like, no, that's not what happened. Like Third Ward had those stories where the people knew the truth.
Yes. But
there wasn't a publication that was allowing voice for that truth, right?
I love it.
So I couldn't shake that either. And I was like, wow, the resilience of this community, in spite of the leadership that comes out of it, not advocating for them when they get in office, right? Or not advocating for them when they get in position. That part became glaringly obvious. I was like, wow, that's shameless. And so then as we began to talk, and I said, well, we should talk about this, and we should talk about that, and that would be interesting. And that's where I was doing my complaining. So I talked to him about what we should do, talked at the bus stop about what ain't being done. And then, initially, just listening to that voice. Okay, you know what? Let me design what I would do. Well, what I'm good at is graphic design. If I was to talk about this, it would be monthly. And on a business point, I was like, well, I got bills to pay. It'll be monthly because every month I get bills that come in. Uh-huh. If this is going to be a business, every month I can get income that comes in. So that kind of became a part of it. And what the name would be was, well, what is the spirit of this community? And it wasn't Riverside Terrace or so-and-so, and Houston didn't really have a voice. And I said, well, I really want to be the BBC of the diaspora. Like, I really would like us to be a conglomerate global voice for our culture. But I said that, and people said, well, that's a bit ambitious. So I began to research, like, the Gap Band and TMZ in these places, and saw that once they brought love to the community, they always had a home base. And so at that moment, I said, you know what, this is our home base, and we will shamelessly be in love with the Tre. Not Third Ward, because the Ward piece was great, but the people call it the Tre.
The Tre.
I don't know what the lawyers call it and what city council named it, but the people call it the Tre. And so we were going to give value to that, and that's where the name came from. And the accent was like, if you can see yourself with that little extra,
right?
And on the E, like, it would really sort of show you that it's not a common. You're not common. You're extraordinary. And so that became the basis for it. And so I had designed at that point what was a 100-page book that was going to include the core Kwanzaa values, the core sort of community values that were a part of our sort of base, our legacy, our future, our present. And so once the book was totally designed, Spirit and I have a unique sort of relationship, because I'm always like, is this what you wanted? Because this is now what's
I know what
happen.
You're talking about. Trust me, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. because the spirit will send me back to the drawing board in a heartbeat. No, that's not right. No, I'm just going to disappear this whole file. It's just going to evaporate into thin air. So you got to do it over.
You have lived a life. It is right. Like the whole file will disappear if that wasn't if that's not the message.
Right. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I know. And which is why I love what you're doing with the Mothership, because I think people don't understand. If it was just straight business, close your eyes, put out some sellable basic content, and just throw out junk every week, and people would not know the difference. But when you're answering to something
higher,
that's greater than you, higher,
yes,
you don't have that. You can't be that lazy.
You can't have to. No, you will not be allowed to. Good luck sleeping.
I mean, waking up just tossing, like, you can't have me up at 3 a.m. You can't.
Again?
This is not.
Like, this ain't even. Why am I popping popcorn and making tea at 3 o'clock in the morning? I don't get up till 8. What am I doing on my feet? And it's dark outside. And I ain't sleeping no more. You know what I'm talking about. You said something I want to expand on real quick. The part where you said I had to learn that I too am extraordinary. I'm not here to do nothing mediocre. I'm extraordinary. How did you balance that with not allowing people to guilt you or make you feel conceited?
Well, they had their seasons, and I had over time, people will chip away at what you know to be your best self.
Yes.
So I can't say that it didn't hit a point. But when I came in, I even in my broken financial situation, I still felt gifted. I still knew that my gifts were real. And so fortunately and divinely, I put all those gifts on paper. And so when I did get chipped away at, and people weren't saying it to break me, they were saying that because that's what they believe of self.
Exactly. Right? Like they're projecting their own fears.
Right. They're projecting it. So the same, you must be this level because I am this level. And if you've risen to something outside of that level, then what's my excuse for staying at this level? So like they're fighting like the Matrix to stay in this space, and just my sheer presence was upsetting their paradigm. And I didn't know that then. That was the point. I was like, why are you tripping? But now I understand, right? Like I understand it more. So I think it does happen. I had to intentionally begin to connect with both sides, those who are looking to be healthier, those who are looking to evolve. But I couldn't, and Spirit would not allow me to remove myself totally from the people of all levels who all have something to offer. And so it's a unique balance, because some of our best writers have been, there was a gentleman who was homeless, who we did our first anniversary, and we had it was a community fair of sports and wellness and training, and every hour was an activity, and then you could go and watch the best of our community do it, and then the next half hour, so there were half-hour blocks, you could go and learn from them. So if you ever want to learn capoeira, they come and do a demo, and then you can go in there and learn capoeira. Like, it just gave a chance for community to touch the possibilities. And it was a wonderful experience. But this guy came up and got on the microphone. He said, "Well, can I say something?" Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And to feel comfortable enough in the Tre community that he knew that there was a place for him in this circle, right? That, to me, was powerful. Yes. That he didn't walk into this space and say, you know how you might go into a hotel and it's like, oh, I don't belong in that room, or that's their thing. But he knew that this could be his thing if he asked. And he came up and just spoke just volumes. I mean, it was, we were all speechless. It was the best of the day. And I said, what are you doing? What happened in your journey? Because this doesn't come from just anywhere. And he said, I have boxes of these, just boxes and boxes. And I was like, well, could I have some, and can we share them? So he gave us 3 or 4. The dilemma is when you open up the door, then people become very, what's not good enough. It was like, no, you are good enough. You are excellent with what you walked in here with, literally off the street. And so as much as I had begged for, I don't know, maybe 6 to 9 months, we only ended up with 3, and he passed away. So I didn't know enough about him to find his archives, or I'm sure his family just threw it all away. But when you say about this excellence and keeping it, because he showed me, homeless or not, what excellence in poetry and writing was on that day. And it wasn't me, and it wasn't any other degrees that were standing there, and it wasn't any other education. It was that brother that had that on his heart for years that transformed us the most. So I try to stay connected to those who might chip away at our sense of excellence.
Right. But or try to weight it in materialism.
Say it one more time.
Or try to give it its weight in gold and materialism.
Right. But it's more than that. So that's a sort of a long answer to that. But I think we have to stay human, and we have to stay connected, and we have to, you might get burned a little, but you don't, you still come out there as open as you were before. You might be pleasantly surprised and get a bigger gift than you earned or even expected on that day. So some days we win even more as long as we stay the operating course. In our excellence. Stay the course. So the magazine that you have now, that was the vision when I finished the first one.
Ah, so you worked your way up.
Yes. So it didn't grow. It didn't grow into this. It started at this. It just didn't have the resources to live out that level of a vision.
I see.
So for me, it's like it's always been that. Like, to me, this is always what it was supposed to be.
So it was like you saw the finished product first, and then Spirit took you through the journey of developing it into that.
Right.
And you know what?
Right.
Thank you for that, because the Mothership is so humbling right now. Because it's like the journey of it, the everyday, day-to-day operations, it's like I can see it turning into what I saw in the beginning. But it's like the journey of it is real.
That is the
journey is real. Like the recording sessions, production, creating the imagery for it, organizing the time, coming up with the membership packages. It's like ay. But
it's a lot.
But you love it. I get a lot more done when I relax and let myself love it, instead of, oh my God, I got to do this. Oh my God, I got to do that. Yeah. That makes it stressful.
Yeah. And I feel like one of the elders that I used to look at crazy when I was a kid that would say, oh, just wait on it and all things in time. And I was like, I don't have time. I need to figure out how to make this work this week now. But there is actually something about that being in flow. Yes. That you do enjoy the moment. It does work out. You just stay the course, and the right people meet at the right season. I mean, had I not already designed the book, had I not designed the rate sheet, had I not gone through the process, when I met those people along the way, I wouldn't have been able to finish the sentence. I wouldn't have had anything for them to offer me growth through had I not gone through the process. So the same for you. It is about you getting clarity on your vision through this process. And then when you meet the right person, it's like, oh, this is what you need? No, this is exactly what I need. Funny, I have 2 of those. And I was looking to give one away. Like, it just becomes surreal when you're working 100% on your, like, calling.
Exactly. Yes.
You know.
And that's
yeah,
exactly
so definitely flow.
And that's why I said what I said in the beginning about thank you for persevering on your journey, because you gave me a clue of what my journey looked like. Because one thing that I'm getting from this conversation is that you and I both have a divine purpose to Third Ward, to the Tre. Because get this, I didn't know I was born here until I moved here. Check that out.
I love that.
Hashtag God got jokes. You know, because I first started coming to the Third Ward community through, you know, a relationship that I was in. And then again, toxic was an understatement. But I think it was a lot of karmic energy there on both ends. Yeah. To be fair.
Right.
But that's that's a whole other anyway. When I started my life over again, I lived for 6 months in a halfway house off Harrisburg in 2nd Ward. I had checked out of life, period. Yeah. Got a job at the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. I was working from can't see in the morning to can't see at night. Looked up and I had stacked up enough money to move out of the rooming house. And my first mind was to get a one-way ticket away from all the memories. Somewhere far enough away where I could still get to my mother and grandmother if I needed to. Well, close enough to still get to them, but far enough away to clear myself of the memories. Me being the praying woman I am, I prayed. I asked for my path to be guided. And I ended up moving into the 7th house that I looked at. Where was that 7th house? One street over from the Shape Community Center. Smack dab in the middle of the... Oh, my God. And I was, you know, like you say how you and the universe have y'all's conversations. I'm like, God, let me holler at you real quick. Why would you put me here? Of all the freaking places in the world, why would you put me here? Right. So you go on about your business, because you know how when you pray prayers and when the universe delivers, you know in that moment that your prayer has been answered. So you know how you have the folder with your important papers in it? My birth certificate fell out of the folder. Oh no. I picked it up and looked at it. The zip code read 77004. Oh wow. I'll go in the kitchen. I look at my lease. The lease said 77004. I heard my father's laughter in my ears. Oh. I said, oh, damn. So that's the reason you can say. That's all I could say. So, you know, I had to really balance that. That's why I'm glad you made that statement about embracing your extraordinariness. And you know, some people may take it as conceited, and I'm okay with that, because I do walk around Third Ward like I'm home. This is my house. Right. But we gotta clean our house though.
And the other part, I think people, and what I had when you talk about, you know, all of that energy and the chipping away, however people label it, what I learned the hard way is when I became broken and when I ingested all of that, and I was walking around looking tired and crazy.
Oh, yeah.
No, everyone was not everyone, but two things happened. There was a group that was okay with it, and I was like, oh. There was a group that now I was low enough that they could kick. Like, okay, I can't stay down here. Check. And the third part is the group that I really was kindred with. Well, they couldn't touch a broken energy. They don't go down that low. Right? Like, so I had to decide whether you call it arrogant or whether you call it A, B, C, or D. That's who this is. And you weren't there when I had to do my hard steps. You weren't there when we were juggling, trying to figure out how we were going to just make it day to day. Through that.
You preaching now.
So now I have to stay broken, and I have to always tell a broken story to validate this good one. Right. I'm not going to do that anymore. this is awesomeness. I'm living awesomeness. I came from awesomeness. My DNA says awesomeness. And I only want to be around those who walk that truth. If you're in something else, I just can't help you, right? Because then we're reliving trauma all day. And that's not what we're here for.
Oh my God, you're making so many important points. I'm gonna rewind the tape back a little bit to where you said you had to decide, because see, in the traditions of African spirituality, the decisions deal with choices. Choices deal with the Orisha Eshu, black and red. Eshu's number is 3. Tre Magazine, ring a bell?
Yeah.
Do you see them? Do you see those spiritual forces at work there?
Let me tell you how I know you're 100% right. Because three has really become a divine theme around the way these things have grown. When I make the important decisions, I keep the 3 people in the room, we build around, and it's this strong triangle pyramid base. And that powerful 3 really, it's a theme throughout the book in ways that people maybe can see or can't. But you're right. Like I have definitely needed to learn. I mean, I know baby logic around the Orishas, but really talking about spiritual guidance and from an African ancestor point of view. I understand Western math and the way and the why.
Yes.
But there's something about opening this understanding that has been transformative. That talks about, that's why that always flows that way for me. Or that's why around these seasons I have this challenge. Like that there's something more to be in tune to than what this news station says at this time of day. No, there's something greater at flow.
Absolutely.
So yeah. I'm looking to grow that way.
I want to talk about the time that you and I first met, because when you and I met in 2011, I was in a very shattered space, and I was clinging to the arts because the arts were my light. Writing and poetry and music, those things were my light, you know, and it really meant a lot to me that you featured me to be the journalist for the drummer Bubba Thomas, who's now an ancestor.
Right.
I want to go back to that moment. What do you remember about that moment when we met?
Well, the interesting part is that was a trauma year for me as well, because that was the official year for divorce. Although it had been like a 3-year journey. I was back and forth to New York, but really went in Houston. And I knew of Bubba Thomas-ish. His name had always sort of circulated, but my siblings were musically gifted, and so was my dad. So I kind of had a respect for it, but that rhythm didn't take us all by the hand. That's not like him. But the opportunity and your interest in celebrating his story in a fair way. I think 2 things about that really was compelling is that you wanted to tell his story and not yours, which really said a lot.
Wow.
Right?
I hadn't built up the courage to tell my story.
but you were compelled and committed and willing to call and willing to do the research and pulled out those who you knew to get in, right? And said, no, this is a meaningful story. And it was just so beautiful to see your alignment with the core values and saying, I have this wonderful story. I have this angle that I know will resonate with the value systems of the Tre. Yes. And I know it'll have meaning to the readers. And that was like all I would have ever prayed for. It's like, this is beautiful.
Oh my gosh, that was like one of the rays of light in the darkness for me that year. That interview that you set up with Bubba Thomas. It was a reminder.
Yeah.
It was a reminder that when we met, I was right in the middle of Oya's whirlwind. I mean, no joke.
Wow. So how did it feel for you? Like, what was, it's always interesting because for me, I have a lens that's both meaningful in terms of mission and value, and meaningful from like she followed through, right? Because like that would be more of it trying to hold the ship together. But often I never get to have the conversation about what it meant to you, and what it opened for you, and what made you even engage, and how did you say, this is where I belong?
I had always written. Mm-hmm. Like, I really believe that writing is a package that I was born with that. Like when I was in 3rd grade, we had to write these short stories. And I remember my teacher had pulled my mom off to the side. She called my mom and she was like, she was a Caucasian teacher. So she was like, look, man, I'm really not trying to insult your daughter's intelligence in any way. But did she really write this paper, or did you help her write this paper? And my mom says, what do you mean? She's like, this is very advanced writing for a child. And my mom said, oh, well, I skimmed over it, but I didn't really read it. My teacher was like, read this paper. And when my mom read it, they both looked at me like, you wrote this? And I'm looking like, what? I'm serious. That was kind of frustrating. And then she told my mother, she said, keep that pen in her hand. And I was really good. Then, there was a block in my writing journey because in college, my privacy was violated when someone had read one of my very private diaries. Mm-hmm. And that made it hard for me to open up to myself,
Right.
When someone takes that, I'm like, don't leave no evidence. But that was leaving a lot bottled up inside, Right. Then, in high school, I wrote for the newspaper. In college, I wrote for the Panther at Prairie View. And then, I had blogs, but the Tre Magazine was the first independent Black publication that I wrote for. So I'm like, wait a minute. I get to put an article in a black woman's magazine? Hell yes, I'm on it. Where do I sign? What do I do just to be a part of that? And then I'm like, I'm interviewing a jazz musician when I spent 6 years at a jazz radio station, KPVU. So I'm like, it was all aligned. But I was a little intimidated. Like, I got to make sure this is perfect because this is the first Black publication. I need to really go for the gusto. Like, I just go for the gusto. I didn't really think of the spiritual implications of it until like years down the road when a lot of debris cleared and I had time to reflect on the jewels of my journey. Because, people have to learn, especially us Leos, because we're ruled by our spines and we're ruled by our hearts. And a lot of people break our hearts. Yeah. But it's important to reflect on those positive memories and those moments of triumph. And writing for Tre Magazine back in 2011 was one of, like I said, the lights in the dark for me. It was a glimpse. It was a glimpse into the path to come.
Well, I am just, that's just beautiful. It's sobering. It's sobering to know that it could mean that much, and that it could do that much, and to be on this side of the journey. There will be another side where both of us are standing here with platforms that open up platforms for more of those moments.
Yes.
It's just, and the idea that in our archives, that your gift sort of created a memorial for him. That prior to his passing, your story gave legacy to his story while he was still here.
Yes.
It's not some made-up story after the fact based on what you thought. You know what I mean? It's like...
Right, or something some journalist covered because he had a deadline.
Yeah. If I could add why it means even more, is I don't know if you know Esther King. He was a civil rights leader.
I met him once.
Well, he came into the office early on, and I was still new to Houston, so, I got a New York edge to me. And this brother just walked. I was you remember where I was, in the back of my dad's office. And he just came up out of nowhere. And he says, "Oh, I know what you're trying to do. I see it. I see your publication." I know. And he just read me. He read me, and I was like, "Who
Yes,
are you?"
You know which ancestor fussed at me?
Who?
Zin.
Oh, I miss Zin. I miss Zin.
Yeah, Zin is one of the Mothership's 9 distinguished ancestors. Because you know how when you're out at the community events and you're having your conversations and things like that, I blabbed a little bit too much and I let it slip that I knew how to produce. And he looked at me. He was like, "What did you just say? Wait. What did you just say?" And I say this with a smile on my face. Every divine man has mastered the daddy look. You know how when your daddy shoot you that heifer go somewhere and sit down look? Every divine man has that look shoot.
He pulled that out and gave it right to you.
Oh my God, he shot me that look. That look like, what are you doing? And he just shook his head. Right. He said, "Nah, sis, you can't keep that under the rug. People need to know like that." Like his whole demeanor changed. Like he was serious. He wasn't playing with me at all.
Zen was powerful that way. We started out talking about dividedness, but Zen was all about elevating your gifts. Not only would he elevate them, he'd help you claim them, right? Because you weren't claiming that gift before. You were just like, "Yeah,
right."
And he said, no.
And it was like he did it in such a divine but firm manner that I couldn't even come back with it. You can't tell me what to do. You don't know me like that. I couldn't even do that. I couldn't do nothing but just hold my head down and sip my little lemonade tea, sip my little ginger beer, and just take that smack on the back of the head.
Yeah, that was 100%. There were 2 moments where Zen came for me that way. And I remember feeling, like you said, almost shame in a good way that A, he saw right through me, and B, I knew what I was supposed to do next. And I knew I had not been doing it, and I knew I was supposed to get to work. And he had nothing to gain. He wasn't getting a commission percentage discussion. He believed and knew what he believed and knew. Once he found out your gift, he was going to make sure that it worked.
You want to know another reason what he said to each of us probably hit hard to where we had to internalize it and use it?
Right.
Zen is house 11, Aquarius, the opposite of Leo. Don't you just love divine alignment? # the universe got jokes.
Indeed.
Sis, go ahead.
When you talk about the power of a person, Zen's transition was the first time I saw the impact of someone's love on a way that was super transformative. Zen, I think he had a dozen transition ceremonies.
Yes.
There was one in the park. There was one at the church. There was one at another event. There were so many ways that community had to share his life and honor him.
Yes.
And I had never really seen someone have that level of impact before, that community was like, no. And they were not competitive.
Right.
It was, I knew him through the radio station, therefore I will honor him, and this tribe will come to that. And that tribe will invite another tribe, and we'll go down to the beach, and we'll, do libations there. And then, you know what, this other tribe. I mean, it was amazing. Amazing.
I went to the smudge at 4212, and I went to the vigil at All Real Radio.
Right. I did those too. There was one more I went to. I'm trying to think of where it was. Oh, well, there was something at the beach. I don't remember what that was, but I don't remember who led that. But when you look and you say, he clearly touched lives, that everyone knew that there was a place in telling their story with him.
Absolutely.
And his legacy was. So those are the moments that I think are beautiful. And when Esther King, so we talked about over Thomas, I'm so honored because Esther King, I kept saying to myself, okay, let me get the publication ready to take on such an amazing story.
Ashe.
And he passed before I got to give it. And he came in on that day and he said, you know where this came from? I was like, one, I don't even know who you are yet. But he's like, I just came from U of H. And he told all his stories of these unjust civil rights things that he had lived through. And he said when he sat there in the audience and heard these little kids telling his story wrong based on what they had read from a biased, unjust report from the papers. And he gave The Strange Demise of Jim Crow, where the publishers of the paper say that they deceptively wrote stories against the civil rights movement. And so he said, they didn't even bother to come and look for me. I'm right here. And so it just reminds me of the importance. I mean, if there's one story that reminds me to not wait until you're ready, his story is that we might not get a chance to be, in our mind, worthy enough to carry their story. But if we don't, we lose their story. So You're worthy when they come to you. You're worthy when the moment is presented, not when you get fancier outfits and bigger stations and fancier paper. That's not when you're ready. When Spirit brings it to you, that's when you're ready.
That's when you're ready. Ashe. I would like to take... Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it.
I just want to take this minute to thank you so very much for sharing this time and space with me here on the Mothership. We're definitely going to have to do this again. So where can people find the Tre Magazine?
Yeah, so online, for those who are virtual, it is the TreMag.com. And of course on there you can find all the social medias, Facebook, the TreMag.com, and Twitter and Instagram, well, even on Pinterest. But we're looking to expand and grow. Of course, the printed copy comes out with the book. We are working to do print on demand so that people can order a special edition of the book when the book is printed. We are running out of them so fast. We're working on subscription, so that should be happening. We've partnered with Hearst and working through the Houston Chronicle to distribute with their paper, but really looking to see how to grow nationally, internationally on those levels. So the TreMag.com is the beginning, and we'll just keep evolving, and hopefully there are more ways with time.
And there shall be, because you've you've joined forces with me. It's inevitable.
I love it.
I'm Mayansa JT Muse, and you are listening to 222.9 The Mothership. Tre's a Charm, Leo season. Interview with publisher and founder of Tre Magazine, Stephanie Coleman. Beam up.